This is the first actual conversation I've had today. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon and good evening, depending on where you are. I'm currently traveling, and I am in Daegu, South Korea. And I am going to discuss my very crazy recent travel adventures and share some really good tips for you on how to book, where to book, when to book, what to do in airports. Also talk about my upcoming trip in April, which is our 19-day cruise aboard Cunard's Queen Elizabeth. So the format is, this is a live Q&A. Some of you have sent me questions and I will answer those as we go along. But if you have a question, please pop it in the chat. That's weird. I just got vocal feedback. I have no idea how that happened. Okay. I'm
listening to you.
Oh, okay. That's because someone in the household is also live streaming. That was a little eerie hearing my voice come back at me. Okay. So everyone, I just finished over the holidays a month-long odyssey that started in South Korea and took me through all the way to the US and then back to South Korea again. And I will say I will never do this again. Basically, I booked an award fare on Air India using Aeroplan points. And that actually involved a first class leg from Delhi all the way to Vancouver, Canada. And so I flew from Incheon Airport, which is the big international airport in Seoul, to Delhi, had a long layover in Delhi, like a 12-hour layover in Delhi, and then continued onward with Air India to Vancouver. But my final destination was not Vancouver for that leg of the trip. It was actually Seattle. So then I connected in Vancouver to Seattle. Now, Air India has been in the news very often lately, and with good reason and with bad reason, or shall we say, for good things and for not so good things. I will say that the leg that was from Incheon, from Seoul to Delhi was on one of their old 787s in their old business class product. And it was absolutely as dilapidated as when I flew in May. In fact, it may have been exactly the same machine that I flew on in May. And things were broken and falling apart. The seat next to me, my companion, his seat didn't work. It broke. It froze midway through extending into lie flat mode. And so he was stuck in this bizarre rictus where he couldn't extend his legs and he couldn't put the seat back. And so the crew actually came and spent 20 minutes taking the seat apart and literally forcing it just to go back into a seated position. And unfortunately, because the flight was full, they'd filled every single seat. There were no alternate seats for the gentleman next to me to go and sit. So for this 8-9 hour journey, he paid for a business class seat with a lie flat mode, and he couldn't put that thing into lie flat at all. And it was actually overnight. So it would have been the time he would have been sleeping. So that was, if that had been I would have been pretty upset. I mean, not with the crew members, it's not their fault, with Air India, because honestly, that's not a new issue that these planes are dilapidated. They haven't updated them. They haven't maintained them very well. For those who don't know, Tata Motors bought Air India a couple of years ago. It's been about 2 years now, I think. And while I apologize. And while the service has improved, honestly, Air India's service, it's excellent. All the crew were smiling. They were very solicitous. They were always happy to address any request with a smile, and it felt genuine and warm. It didn't feel forced. So the service and personnel have definitely improved, but they seem to be behind the power curve on updating the hard product. And especially on the really long haul, big route hard products, like say Seoul to Delhi or Delhi to anywhere in North America, I would expect them to have already maybe done some updates already, but they haven't. So that was a problem on our flight to Delhi. Then I had a really long layover in the so-called first class lounge at Delhi. And for those who may be tuning in for the first time to my travel channel, it is called Travels with the Contessa, and that's because my first channel was the Creative Contessa, and that's a medievalist thing, so it's a riff off of that. I'm not a countess. I'm not an aristocrat. I'm not a trust fund baby. I earn my own money and I'm very careful and frugal with it. And I book these flights not with cash, but using credit card points and frequent flyer miles, mostly credit card points that I turn into frequent flyer miles. So, I'm not some privileged scion of a privileged family, very middle class, very proud of it. So my point is that had I paid cash for this flight, the cash price they would have been charging, which was like $8,000 one way, I would have been very disappointed. For the 130,000 points that I used and the $90, it was okay value for money, I will say. And I'm just going to take a moment to check the questions here. Got it. Yep. So just remember that if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and pop them in the chat. So from Delhi, I went to the lounge and I'd made this almost exact same voyage back in May. So I did it again in the hopes that there would be updates or upgrades or enhancements or improvements. And I have to say that overall there weren't. The lounge at Delhi is just as worn and tired as before, and the so-called first class part is just kind of a separate part. It's still part of the main lounge, but it's just a slightly separate section. One person will come when you arrive and bring you one beverage of your choice, and then there's no other staff attending to you. If you fly other first class services like British Airways or Etihad, which I've recently done also with points. The first class experience is first class all the way through, from beginning, not quite to end till you exit the plane. And then after you exit the plane, you no longer feel like you're very first class on either of those airlines. But, at the lounges, they have an a la carte menu where you order and they bring you some very excellent, freshly prepared food served at table with beautiful table settings. And there are attendants, serving staff walking around, asking you if you need anything, and they'll bring you drinks and snacks and food to where you're sitting. And that's not the case in the Air India first class lounge. It's just kind of a segregated section for first class passengers. So that was disappointing. The food, though, you had to go to the business class side to get your food from the buffet. And it was a buffet of very tasty curries, which I appreciate, but it was definitely business class quality of curries. But the spice level was absolutely 100% for the Indian palate, which I'm fine with, and just means I have to blow my nose a lot. So if you are traveling on Air India, be aware that if you order curries on the planes or eat curry in the lounges, it's going to be Indian spice level, not the sort of, soft, gentle baby style curries that we've gotten accustomed to in North America or in Europe. Yeah. So thankfully, though, the lounge, the Air India lounge, which is actually really small for what should be a flagship lounge at a flagship airport in Delhi, it's actually pretty small. Thankfully, they actually have sleeping rooms, little sort of like monk cells with a single bed and a little shelf for your clothes and a pillow and a blanket, and you can just go in there, shut the door, and take a nap. And I did that, and that was really excellent. And so that is definitely superior to the offerings at both even the Concorde lounge, or Concorde room, excuse me, and at Heathrow for British Airways. They just had these weird sleeping pod things where you can't really sleep because they have your body in this strange like V and counter V. And Etihad, their first class lounge, had no sleeping rooms at all. That was at the old terminal, though. They've built a new terminal, so maybe the new first class lounge has sleeping rooms, but they didn't as of August. So in terms of that, the Air India first class lounge or the Air India lounge, because I'm not certain that the sleeping rooms are just for first class passengers, is actually superior. Because I'll tell you, when you have a long layover, and if it's during the time when you would normally be sleeping, having the ability to actually rest and get sleep just makes such a difference for the rest of your journey. And when you arrive at your destination, if you actually arrive rested, in my opinion, the recovery from jet lag is just much easier than if you arrive pre-exhausted, which is another of the benefits of spending points to fly in a lie flat product, right? For those just joining, if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. Or if you have any comments, also there. And if you're enjoying it, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Sorry, it's, YouTube crap you have to mention because people don't always think about it. But it gets my content in front of people and really helps grow my channel. Okay, back to travels. So the nice thing about flying first class on Air India in particular, and having a connection, is that when I landed in Delhi from Seoul, I was actually met at the gate, right at the gate, freshly disembarking from the plane, with an agent who had my name on a sign, and he took my bags, my carry-on, and my backpack, and he escorted me through the transfer process. And we were able to jump, because in a lot of airports, if you transfer, you actually have to go through security again. So we were able to jump the insanely long line for security, get right through, and then he took me all the way to the lounge and put my things down where I wanted to deposit myself and spend the next 12 hours. So that was a really big benefit of a service, because, I don't mind carrying my own things. I actually kind of like the exercise when I'm traveling. But having him just guide me directly there and having him jump that very long security transfer line, or transfer security line, that saved me probably at least an hour based on the scarily long line that I saw. And so that's a tip for if you're transferring at an airport and you are flying business class or first class, or maybe you have some kind of status with the airline on which you're flying. Often at the security transfer points, there are priority lanes for premium cabin passengers or elite status passengers. So look for the signs for those lanes, those security lanes, rather than just suffering through what might be a Disney World at spring break length line that you don't have to. And if you don't see a lane, ask the personnel, because it might be at a separate section that you just haven't reached yet. So tip, if you're traveling in a premium cabin, always ask if there's a special security line, no matter what airport you're at. It never hurts to ask, and it might save you 1, 2, or 3, or 4 hours, depending on the security situation. I've been at Charles de Gaulle Airport where the security transfer point it gave me hives. It triggered my claustrophobia because it was so packed with humanity. This just immense line that seemed to be not moving at all, but thankfully there was a business class lane, and I just sailed past every person all of whom cast me very hateful glances as I walked past them. But that is the benefit of traveling in a premium cabin. Yeah. Sorry, just checking the comments. Okay, no questions yet. Moving on from after my 12 hours and taking a nap, I moved onward and I did eat some very good food. I just needed to have a handkerchief on hand to stem the flow of defensive mucus that was unleashed by the spice in said delicious curries. But there was no one who came to guide me from the lounge to the gate to get on the flight that actually had the first class service. So that's an interesting contrast. Disembarking, you get guidance, but embarking on your connecting flight as a first class passenger with Air India, you don't. And I guess, I know this all sounds like privileged first world crap, but if you pay $8,000 one way for a flight, you do expect an significantly elevated level of service, is I guess my point. Now, I didn't. I used points, but they can't tell that on the ticket. It's all the same fare class, right? So proceeded to my flight to embark, and it was late. It was like an hour and a half late or something like that, boarding. Again, if you're in a lounge, an hour and a half delay is no big deal because you have the comfort of the lounge beverages, the relaxation, the food. I would certainly have been very displeased if I hadn't had lounge access and I'd had to wait just an extra hour and a half at a very busy airport in the sort of general population area of the terminal. But we embarked, and the first class cabin of Air India's current layout, and we were on a 777, pretty certain it was a Boeing 777, or it was an A330. I honestly, it was, at that point, it was what would have been very late at night for me. So it's in the very front of the plane, and there's only 4 pods. They're not really suites because they don't have doors, but they're really big seats is what they are. Big, white leather, comfortable seats. And I will say this about Air India's first class product. The seats, even though they are also still extremely dilapidated to the point where many of the features and functions of the first class seats don't work, they are very comfortable still because the seats are extremely wide. It's like this giant leather comfy chair that turns into a pretty decently wide bed that I could probably comfortably sleep on with say, my condottiero, my husband, right? We could actually fit on there together we'd have to cuddle a little bit, but it would be comfortable. It wouldn't be overly tight. So yeah, the state of, unfortunately, Air India's first class is still that it is very dilapidated. But the service once was, again, excellent. They came and addressed me by name. They took my coat, or they helped me hang up my coat because the pod actually has a coat, an area, a wardrobe, a garderobe, a closet to hang your clothes. On both the business class flight and the first class flight, interestingly, they handed out Tumi branded pajamas, which is part of this new partnership with Tata, between Tumi and Tata, and Tumi amenity kits. Interestingly, on the first flight, the business class flight, you actually get the really nice hard case amenity kit. And then on the first class flight, you get a pleather kit, which I'm like, pleather, come on. First class, I feel like it should be a leather kit, not pleather. That's just absurd. But they did come around and hand out PJs. I now have 2 new sets of Tumi PJs, and I did wear them because on a 15-hour flight, I definitely want to be able to sleep and I want to be comfortable. And I normally dress very elegantly for travel. So for the sleeping part of my journey, I want to be able to actually sleep in full comfort. So PJs it was. I should have worn the Tumi PJs. I didn't think about that. Next time I'm talking about business or first class flights, including PJs, I'll wear the PJs that I got from that flight. There aren't actually many airlines anymore that give out PJs in business class. All of them still do in first class, but not many in business class. Ava Airways gives out really nice PJs. I was just wearing them last night, actually, in PJs or pajamas. In business class, Turkish Airlines does not, but Air India does. So those are the only 2. Qatar Airways also gives out PJs in business class. So those are the 3 airlines that I've been on where you get PJs in business class and first class. So after I was handed my PJs, I went and changed into them. You get a pretty extensive menu, and you can dine anytime in first class. You don't have to dine at the specific service, at a meal service time, which is really excellent when you're not on the same clock as the airline is, or your departure airport is, and your body doesn't want to eat yet. And I didn't. So I scheduled a meal to be served about midway through the flight. And basically they just said, when you wake up, let us know and we'll have it served to you in 20 minutes. And so that is what I did. Of course, when I fly on any national flag carrier, with the exception of American flag carriers, if they have local cuisine on the menu, I always order the local cuisine. I'm not going to order a steak, an American style steak on Air India. I'm going to go for their curries, which I did. And I will say the last time I flew first class, they actually had some special a la carte options of tikka. They had chicken tikka and paneer tikka and lamb tikka. No, they did not have lamb. I lie. No lamb. Chicken tikka and paneer tikka last time. And a kofta tikka. Kofta are these yummy like dumplings made of cheese, paneer, and chickpea flour. And then they're breaded and fried, and they're super tasty. Kofta are. At least these were paneer kofta. And they didn't have any special a la carte options this time, which was kind of sad because this is going to sound crazy, but the tikka that they serve on Air India mid-flight is actually some of the best I've ever had, and I don't know how they manage that. It's juicy, it's well flavored, it's perfectly cooked, it comes out just the right temperature. I don't know how they manage that in an airplane galley, because airplane galleys, as far as I know, no longer use open flames like they did in the bad old days of, the early days of the golden age of travel. Because, in general, you kind of want to avoid open flames on an airplane. Anyway, so the food was good. The menu was extensive, but I will say that I wouldn't rate it as first class. It was actually exactly the same curries, just more of them, but the same caliber of curry that was being served back in business class, and that I got served on the flight to Delhi. So then that's exactly the same thing that happened back in May. So Air India, if you're watching, please offer a different and higher caliber of curry in your first class cabin. There was no lamb, for instance. I expect in a country like India, in first class, I definitely expect lamb to be on the menu, whether it's lamb tikka or some lamb curry, a lamb option, lamb kofta, something with lamb in it. And there was nothing with lamb in it, not in first class. That seems like a real cheap out for a ticket that would normally be pretty damned expensive. Now, if you have any questions about how I booked these points tickets, I'm going to be getting to that later. I'm going to talk a little briefly about the points game. But if you have questions right now, then just pop them in the chat. So, but I will say that the service was, very friendly and warm and solicitous. It was not overly present, by which I mean they didn't come through the cabin to check very often or really at all. But if I rang my little bell, then they were there in a heartbeat. And I once again had the arrangement whereby I had basically both the two center seats. And so I actually turned one into my bedroom, and I turned the other into my dining and work area. So yeah, it worked out that way the last time as well, and it was this way again. And that was good in certain ways, because there were certain features of my seat that were so broken that they were not really terribly usable. Like the table on my sleeping side, actually, when you pulled it out, it sat at an angle like this because it was just that worn out. So yeah, Air India, come on, get around to at least repairing. If you're not going to replace the cabins, just repair the things. Make it look less, a little less tired would be good too. So that took me all the way to Vancouver. And I will say that one thing that was disappointing, they did not have teapots in the first class on Air India. Again, they forgot to load the teapots, and the caliber of tea was super low. It was Tetley or Twinely, one or the other, Tetley or Twinely, tea sweepings in bags. It was really low quality tea. So, in business and first class, I expect a higher caliber of tea for the, commensurate to the price. And yes, I know I'm a tea snob, but I don't drink alcohol. So I expect the other beverages to be just as premium as the alcoholic offerings. And in a tea cultivating country like India, I definitely expect the tea to be top quality, not the, off the grocery shelf crap that everyone can buy. That's kind of stale and not particularly fresh and not very good because it's all just the broken little bits, right? Tea sweepings, literally what they sweep off of the floor that's left over after you get the good quality whole leaves off of the floor. Yes, I know, hashtag Contessa World problems. But look, guys, again, you have to consider how much the number of points this ticket cost or the amount of cash this ticket cost, neither of which were low. 130,000 points is a lot of points. And $8,000 one way is a lot of money. So you really should expect to receive a commensurate product. And especially in America, the United States, I feel like many travelers have been gaslit by airlines into expecting almost nothing for their money. Like they expect that they should just get to from point A to point B, and that's good enough. But it's not. It isn't. You should expect more. You should expect decent catering. You should expect decent service, right? Now, granted, if you're flying on $10 one way on Spirit Airlines, well, then you should just be happy that you get a seat, I guess, probably. But that's not what we're talking about, right? We're not talking about a budget airline. We're talking about a national flag carrier that's now privately owned, actually. Yeah, so if you're listening, Air India, please get the quality of your non-alcoholic beverages up to match the quality of your alcoholic beverages, especially your tea. Okay, moving on from there, I landed in Vancouver. Now, here's the thing. If you are going to book, whether it's a regular ticket or by which I mean a revenue ticket, a ticket for which you pay cash, or if you're using points, you can often get much better deals by booking from two major hubs separately and then booking your connecting flights or travel on a different ticket, on a different airline even. And that's what I did here, because trying to get a ticket from Seoul to Seattle, I could find nothing that was reasonably priced either in a cash ticket or an award ticket, just absolutely nothing. But the trick I do is I look for another airport, another major airport that's close-ish to my final destination. And so I looked at Vancouver International Airport, just across the Canadian border. And lo, from Seoul to Vancouver, I was able to get the award ticket with Air India for 130,000 points. And I had used a transfer bonus from American Express that meant that I only had to transfer 110,000 points. And the bonus brought it up to 130,000 points. So I actually only paid 110,000 points for this ticket. But that got me not just business class, but that first class 15-hour leg from Delhi to Vancouver. Now, I'm a digital nomad. I can work from basically wherever. So that works for me because I just worked on the parts of the flights where I wasn't sleeping and the parts of my layover where I wasn't sleeping. So obviously this approach may involve a longer travel time. And if you're on the sad, pathetic amount of paid time off that you get in America, then probably you maybe don't have the time for this. But if you're anywhere else in the world, working for companies that give you a decent amount of paid time off, then this trick can really work of looking for a different airport that's close-ish to your final destination. So I landed in Vancouver, and my follow-on to get me all the way to Seattle was on Delta. And I managed to score a ticket, a one-way ticket on Delta for $130. And that's like, it's a 40-minute flight. It's literally just up and down. But the trick of that is that if you are on a follow-on ticket in an airline that is not part of your alliance, the airline alliance, so Air India's Star Alliance, Delta is SkyTeam. So that meant I had to actually go out, exit through security, go through passport control, collect my bags, and then take them up to the departures check-in area and check them in myself. So that can be dangerous. That means if you're doing what's called a self-transfer, which is what I just described, you want to make certain that you build in plenty of time, or at least enough time, to successfully make your transfer and also to account for potential delays in arriving, in landing, in your incoming flight. Now, if you buy a ticket that is flexible, that allows you to cancel and rebook with no fees, except for maybe the fare difference, then it's less of a concern. And many fares these days come with that option. Basic economy generally does not. If you buy a basic economy ticket on a US flag carrier, or pretty much any carrier, you get no privileges. If you miss your flight, you miss your flight, you have to buy a new one. Unless you can, maybe get the airline to show you mercy and at least give you a credit. So I had built in actually 8 hours a layover just to be certain. And I planned to meet up with a friend actually in Vancouver and go out and explore for the day. As it turns out, though, my friend was way too busy. He had a whole bunch of things that cropped up on his schedule last minute. So I took my bags upstairs. It was no problem. Vancouver Airport, really nice airport for transfer. They've got very automated systems for passport control. And if you have a US passport, it makes it really easy. And I was able to just go through that. I actually had to wait. The longest thing I had to do was wait for my bags, not just my bags, everyone. It took a long time for the bags to actually get to the belt. But my bags were some of the first off, thankfully, being priority bags from flying in, business and first class. And then I was able to just take them upstairs and go to the Delta counter. Now, 8-hour layover, I was just going to go and check in and go to the lounge. Well, Delta will not check you in more than 3 hours out from your flight. So the option for me then was to sit and wait and hope, and just in the arrival or the departures area, like with no lounge, no nothing. Or the ticket agent said to me, "Well, you're here early. What about taking the 8:40 flight?" And it was now like 7:20. And I said, "Yes, do that. Put me on that earlier flight." Because I knew that I was flying into Seattle and that I would be flying into the domestic terminal rather than the international terminal, and that I would therefore have lounge privileges in the Delta Sky Club because they allow you to use their Sky Clubs as arrival lounges. And so I said, yes, absolutely, let's do that. And there was no extra cost. And this is often the case with most airlines. If you arrive early enough and they have room on the flight, they're happy to put you on that flight because then they don't have to, maybe, especially if your flight is overbooked, your original flight is overbooked, then they don't have to pay people to be bumped or play the bump, that whole game. They're happy to do that, and they'll do it for free, which they did for me. So I checked in, and there's a weird thing at Vancouver International Airport, at least in this part of the terminal, which they recently built, apparently. They did not build conveyor belts to go to the check-in counters. So you check your bags, they give you the tags, and then you have to take your bags to a central X-ray area to get them onto the belt to make it onto the tarmac to make it onto your plane. It was very weird. I've only seen that at tiny little airports, like, one check-in counter airports where one flight a day comes in or out. It was trippy that they built this terminal in this way at Vancouver International Airport. But anyway, hashtag Contessa World problems. Like I said, I actually don't mind having to drag my bags more because it's more exercise, and I actually do appreciate the workout along the journey, but it was interesting. So thankfully, Vancouver International Airport has a TSA pre-check and global entry, which I have both of. And so I was able to go into that line and skip the, once again, Disney World at spring break length lines for general security screening. And I was able to go and take advantage of the one priority pass lounge that there is. It was actually very close to the Delta gate because Delta doesn't have a Sky Club in the domestic US departures part of Vancouver International Airport. I was able to sit and relax and have some tea before boarding my flight. And I will say, the Delta gate agent was super friendly and super helpful. And once I, boarded my flight, I was flying first class. I paid extra for first class because I knew my bags were probably going to be more than 23 kilograms each. So even though I get 2 free checked bags because of having a Delta Reserve American Express, that's only for 23 kilograms. And because I was doing this month-long crazy itinerary that involved a 5 days medievalist event, I needed more. So I did pay it was like $30 extra for first class, which is cheaper than $100 per bag for being heavier than 23 kilograms. So got to sit in first class. And I will say that even though it was a really short flight, they actually offered pre-boarding beverages, including alcohol. There was a couple right in front of me who went right in for Bloody Marys at 7:40 in the morning. I just went for tea. And I will say that unlike Air India, Delta is serving premium quality tea from Tevana. It is tea sweepings, but it's quality tea sweepings, which is more than I can say for Air India. So, Delta is definitely still got a pretty good service, still offers pretty good service. And, they're offering a pretty decent catering product. And then they came around with a basket of premium snacks, which, on a 30, 40-minute flight, that's pretty good. Now, granted, I'm not as impressed when Delta does the same thing on their 2-hour flights, which is what they do these days. They don't offer you a hot meal on 2-hour flights, even if you're in first class and pay a severe markup for it. So, right, it's a give and take on what's good or what's not good. And then we landed in Vancouver, or we took off and we landed in SeaTac, and I was able to go and rest in the Sky Club, Delta Sky Club, and eat some yummy breakfast and have some really good quality tea. Yes, I know I'm a tea snob. The Delta Sky Clubs have very, very high quality tea. They are tea bags, but it is whole leaf tea in the tea bags, and it's organic and it's always really good quality. So I was able to relax and have some good food and take advantage of that area to rest while I waited for my husband to join me. He was flying on a separate flight, but landing a couple of hours after I did. So it all worked out. It was exhausting. I would say that my door-to-door time, so the time I left Ryan's apartment, my husband's apartment in Daegu, to the time I got to my home in Covington, that was probably, Covington's kind of outside of Seattle. It was a 52-hour journey door to door. And I recognize that not everyone can do that. But, you know, it's like I said, digital nomad means I can do things like that. Yeah. So again, big takeaway for that part of the journey. For a tip for you, if you can't find a flight that's reasonably priced, either in points or money, going to your final destination or departing from your point of origin, look for other airports that are close-ish. See if you get a good deal on that leg. And the reason that Vancouver was cheaper, I'm confident, is that Vancouver actually flies a lot more international flights than Seattle does. Seattle is a lot bigger much bigger domestic operations than international operations, whereas Vancouver has much bigger international operations than Seattle does. So that's probably why there's more competition for those fares, right? Competition is good for the market. It's good for the consumer. Anyway, I'm not gonna digress into an economics soapbox. Point is that I was able to, the local airport to my husband's apartment would have actually been Daegu, but flying out of Daegu was impossible with points. And if I wanted to buy a ticket from Daegu to Seattle, it would have been $6,000-$7,000 one way for business class. So yeah, just taking the bus up to Incheon, flying from Incheon to Vancouver on points, and then just paying $130 for the little hop to connect me to Seattle on the back end. Big savings. Okay, so question. In the US, where do you find it's easier to find cheaper tickets from or to? I'm in Austin. Yeah, so Austin, you're right, Austin tends to be more expensive. So for international travel or domestic travel, that's the important, because there's kind of a difference between the two. I'll start with international travel. International travel, your better options are probably for tickets, whether it's points or award fares, are going to be on the coast, the coasts. If you are going to Asia, you're probably going to find better fares out of Los Angeles and out of San Francisco to Asia. If you're flying eastward, you're going to find better fares out of Dulles, Washington, D.C. Dulles, the international airport, not DCA, which is the Reagan National Airport, or JFK. Sometimes also Newark International Airport, which is across the Hudson River in northern New Jersey. So yeah, your East Coast airports are going to be for better fares, both revenue, cash, paying cash for them, or points, are going to be JFK, Newark, which is EWR, or Washington Dulles. The other international airports, not so much. So Atlanta is a big airport, and they do have a decent international service, but the last year, I have not really been able to find much good in the way, like this last year that travel has picked back up again, I've not been able to find much good in the way of either award fares or revenue fares when looking there, and I have been looking there because my mother lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and so Atlanta is not very far. So that that could have been a good point of hopping. But for the last year of travel, when I'm flying, and even getting back to Korea, I flew out of Dulles, and I was able to get a really excellent award fare on Turkish Airlines to get me all the way to Korea, with a combination of a promotion and whatnot. Yeah. So for domestic tickets, so flying within the U.S., it's going to kind of be the same. Atlanta actually is a good hub for domestic tickets, but if you're in Texas, not so much. So for Texas, for you, it's going to be, for Austin specifically, it's probably going to be Houston. I think Austin is closer to Houston. It's going to be Houston or Dallas. Even for the domestic stuff, you can probably, if you can get a public transit, unfortunately, public transit in the U.S. is not very prevalent, and Texas is huge, so the distance from Dallas to Austin is actually kind of big. But yeah, for Texas, you can look at Houston. Actually, has quite a bit of international traffic, and I would look there. And so I would book out of Houston. I would look at booking out of Houston. And I bet you can probably get a connection from Austin to Houston, probably on Southwest Airlines, actually, for pretty cheaply, if you book in advance enough. South, right. Okay, yeah, so, yes, okay, so the answer is we're looking to go south, maybe to Mexico or Central America. Okay, well, that's an important distinction. So there are a lot of flights going south out of Miami and out of Houston, also lots of south going flights. So I would definitely look at booking, check from Austin first. It's never hurts to check. You never know. There might be some airline alliance combination might be looking to fill seats, but if that doesn't give you anything good, compare it against flying out of Houston and Miami to go south, and also LAX, also Los Angeles to fly south. There's a lot of big carriers. A lot of carriers are flying out, heading to Central and South America. Avianca, for instance, flies out of Houston. They might fly out of Dallas as well, but I definitely saw them flying out of Houston. And Avianca also flies out of Miami. That's the Columbia national flag carrier. They managed to cling to life barely during COVID. But I would look at Miami, and I would look at Houston and Los Angeles if looking through Austin doesn't give you what you're looking for. A lot of those airlines from Central and South America fly basically to sort of like what do they call that? The South Belt? The Sun Belt. The Sun Belt. That's what it's called in the US, not the Rust Belt. The Sun Belt. They fly to the Sun Belt. And then they use the alliances, their partners, like their North American partners, to go the last miles, as it were, to make that connection, your onward connection to whatever the other airports in the United States are. And if you are playing the points game, Avianca, the national carrier of Colombia, is a transfer partner for multiple credit cards, for American Airlines, American Express for their rewards program. I think they're also a Chase transfer partner, and I think they might also be a Capital One transfer partner. And they're often running specials to transfer points to them because they're always in kind of dire financial straits. And they actually have a really good reward chart. So you can book this, let's say, you could probably book a United flight actually out of Houston to, say, anywhere in South America that they fly, and you could book it through Avianca business class for the same amount of points that if you booked that same flight through United's program, you would pay for economy class. That's the difference in the charge of miles. The US flight carriers charge crap tons of money in miles and points to fly their own metal. So I would book a United flight through Avianca, for instance, especially going south. Out of set. Oh, okay. What? Actually, I am not familiar with SAT as an airline. The comment was, we tend to find cheaper flights out of SAT for reposition purposes. It's about 90 miles from Austin. Oh, San Antonio, of course. Yeah, of course you do. Duh. Right. Sorry, took me a moment to figure out figure out the geography of where you are. Yeah, right. San Antonio, of course you would. Yeah. So for the international parts of your legs, then yeah, I would definitely look at Houston for going south, and Miami and Los Angeles. Phoenix has been expanding lately as an international airport. They even have a Centurion lounge now. So I would also take a peek at Phoenix if you're not finding anything nice out of Houston. What I would like about Houston for you being in Austin is that your repositioning flight is not too long, right? For me personally, for peace of mind, I prefer my repositioning flights not to be too booked on a separate ticket, on a separate fare. I prefer them, or a separate ticket, yeah. I prefer them not to be too far, just for safety purposes. Obviously, the further you get with your repositioning airport, the bigger the gamble of you making that connection. But that's just me. Everyone has their own level of risk aversity. And it depends on the fare you book. Like, obviously, if you book a first class fare for your repositioning ticket, you have a lot of flexibility if something goes wrong. And if you book award tickets, a lot of award tickets do also offer a lot of flexibility about rebooking, sometimes with no fee, sometimes with a pretty high fee. So, but you can often rebook it without losing your points, at least. If you're buying a cash fare, a revenue fare as part of your connection, then you want to make sure that your revenue fare for the main bulk of your journey has some flexibility about rebooking, just in case your repositioning flight doesn't work out. Yeah, so from San Antonio, I would definitely look at Houston for going points south. Dallas is pretty good for going to Mexico. And I think Avianca does also fly into Dallas. Houston is just closer to you. And there's likely to be U.S. flag carriers who are actually looking to fill that San Antonio to Dallas or the San Antonio to Houston leg, just to get that filled, because they need to fill it for the few people who might be using that as the start to a longer journey. So you can often, that's why you might find some carriers offering a route like that for less than other carriers. Yeah. Good question. Thank you for asking that. I don't actually get many questions about flying south, so it's nice to break out that knowledge. I actually haven't had a chance to get to South America yet. It's on my list. It really is. I've always lived generally in hemispheres where it wasn't convenient to get to that part of the world. And my husband currently lives in Korea. I'm visiting him right now. And so South America is just not, it's a long journey from Korea. And so I'm kind of waiting until maybe we're in a better place to get there. We'll see. The next year is kind of crazy for us in terms of what's going to be happening, where we're going to be living. I literally have no idea where we might be living after August. So that's exciting. Yeah, very good question. Thank you for asking that. So yeah, that was the first leg of my crazy journey. I will say, again, recap on Air India. Air India, the service is 1,000% better than what it was when I flew in 2018 from Seoul to Hong Kong and Hong Kong to Seoul. The food definitely needs to come up a level to be more on par with both the business class level of service and what I would say is the first class level of service. But if you can find the right fare, then it might be worth it, but only if it's significantly less expensive than peers, than other carriers on the same route. Yeah. So I spent 10 days visiting, back at home in Covington for Christmas, but then it was soon onward. But I actually did some fun things in Seattle. So it's funny, when you live near a place, you don't necessarily do the things that tourists do there. And I had actually never been to the Seattle Underground. And that's not a metro, by the way. For those who don't know, Seattle has an underground city. And so that we actually went and visited it. It was built during the gold rush, and there were all sorts of problems because the city was built at sea level, and they built sewage lines that just kept backing up because they were actually below sea level, and so the tide would actually force all of the things that are in sewage lines back up and into people's homes. And then there was a big fire at the end of the 19th century, and they took that as an opportunity to literally build a new city on top of the old one. They filled in the streets up a whole story and just built on top of the old city. And so now you can actually go and take tours in this creepy, seemingly, reportedly haunted underground. And it was definitely worth the tour. So if you're in Seattle, definitely do the underground tour. Worth it, and definitely do it at night when it's like maximum creepy. Apparently there are children ghosts down there. So, you know, if you're lucky, you get to hear creepy, malignant giggles from the darkness. Another question. Have I flown on Zip Air yet going west? I hear lots of good things about it. So I've not had an opportunity to fly Zip Air. I do want to. They actually do fly, interestingly, from Seoul to Japan. And I almost ended up booking them because for the cruise we're taking in April, it's a Japan-Taiwan cruise with one stop in Korea. I'll be back here visiting my husband again, and so we're going to be flying out of Seoul. And so I considered flying the Zip Air leg from Seoul to Japan, but once I added in the cost of luggage, and we're going to have a lot because it's a 19-day luxury cruise and I like to dress for dinner differently every night, we ended up, Zip Air was actually way too expensive once you factored in the cost of luggage and all the things. So we ended up booking a business class fare with Ethiopia Air, actually. But that being said, I have read lots of good things and heard good things from people here in Korea about their Zip Air experience. Now, granted, for those who don't know, Zip Air is a budget, it's what they call a hybrid budget airline, right? In the sense of they have an economy class product, they have a business class product. The business class has lie flat seats, and they do fly to Los Angeles. I'm not certain, they might fly to San Francisco too. They definitely fly to Los Angeles. But like a true budget carrier, you pay for everything. Every little extra thing, right? Your fare comes with nothing, not drinks, not food, not anything, not even the business class fare. You get a lie flat seat. You don't even get a blanket or a pillow, not an amenity kit, not anything. It is bare bones. You can pay a la carte for each separate item you might like if you would like any of those items. They do offer some bundles. That's an extra cost. So that is my caveat emptor for Zip Air, is that the fare you pay is literally just the privilege of putting your butt on a seat and nothing else. Not even your carry-on bag is included, right? So you really do have to, I thought it was me. Thank you for confirming that they do in flat fly to San Francisco. I thought I remembered reading they did. So for Zip Air, if you can find a good fare that is way cheaper, and I mean hundreds of dollars, would have to be hundreds of dollars cheaper than other carriers, I do recommend it. Just be aware, you have to pay for every single thing that is not your butt in a chair. Everything. So don't board and expect that you're going to get complimentary beverages. You're not. So bring your own beverages on board if you don't want to pay their prices. And I've heard that their prices aren't terrible, but they're not great either. And the quality of food is not really business. You're not getting business class level food and beverages in the business class product. You're basically still getting the economy class food and beverages, just sitting on a nicer, bigger chair. Yeah. Oh yeah, Narita. So the other catch, the comment is they fly to both San Francisco and LAX, and the other catch is that it flies to Narita, not Haneda. Yeah, so for those who don't know about Japan, about Tokyo specifically, there are two major international airports. There are other smaller ones, but two major international airports that serve Tokyo. One, Haneda, is really close to the city. Very easily connected, easy high-speed trains straight into the city, no problem. That's Haneda. The other airport is Narita, and Narita is like on the polar opposite side of the city. Like it's a 3-hour bus ride from Haneda to Narita. And I know that, and I'll tell you why in a moment, because we just made that trip. Narita is where many, many airlines, fly into. I think it's possibly a bigger airport and it's a newer airport. And so if you are planning to, say, do a layover trip in Tokyo, be aware that if you're flying into Narita, you're going to need way more time to get into the city and back out of the city than if you're in Haneda. So, yeah. It is, yeah, the catch is, so Zip Air, it doesn't surprise me that Zip Air flies into Narita and not Haneda. Also, something to note, if you are using Zip Air to then connect to a flight that takes you onward into other parts of Asia, pay attention that the flight you decide to connect with is also flying out of Narita. Otherwise, your self-transfer could be nightmarish. And sometimes, even if you fly Asian carriers, normal, standard, conventional flag carriers like All Nippon Airways, ANA, as some of you may know them, or Japan Airlines, sometimes they will offer you a ticket that involves a transfer from Haneda to Narita or Narita to Haneda, and that's a self-transfer. They do not provide a shuttle. You have to collect your bags from the one airport, take them with you, and get your butt to the other airport and check them in again. So always be wary when you are booking your tickets into any airport. And this is a caveat emptor for any airport. Anytime there's a connection, make sure that the airport code is the same for your arriving and departing airport, and then decide if you can make that self-transfer, because nearly always airport transfers are self-transfers. The airline does not provide you with any support in that regard. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. My new subscriber, thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate the support. I love travel, and my specific brand of travel vlogging polarizes people. They either love it or they really, really, really hate it, and they let me know in very not so nice terms. My new subscriber says he's a new subscriber and he watched one of my vids and enjoys my feedback. Oh, you watched my 15 hours in Korean Air. Oh, excellent. Yeah, that one gets me some hate too. I've taken deleting hateful comments because frankly, that's not the kind of community I want to build. So if you're watching this and you decide to leave a hateful comment, no, it will get reported and deleted. Don't waste your time. But also, just leaving the comment, even hateful, increases engagement and pushes my content in front of more people. So hateful or not, you're still helping support my channel. Isn't that a wonderful irony of YouTube? Yeah, so Zip Air, if you fly Zip Air, caveat emptor, you will have to buy everything a la carte, and you should definitely be wary of the airport into which you're flying if you have a transfer onward with another airline. Yeah. I do hope to try them out though. Again, the part of the problem is they only fly to San Francisco or LAX, and actually that would be okay for getting back to Seattle now that I think about it. I should start looking at them more often. They don't play the points game though. So I will say that I rarely book tickets using cash for the long haul parts of my flight. I'm really always using points. But for the sake of travel experience and travel review, I might actually, the next time I need to get back to the US from Asia, which will be soon actually, and I haven't booked that ticket yet. I'll see what Zip Air is offering, and then maybe I can give a rousing, interesting, Contessa Witt filled review of the experience. Yeah. So onward from Seattle, I continued my Christmas visits to visit my mother who lives in Asheville, North Carolina. And a little known fact also about American flag carriers is that for certain transcontinental routes, you can actually get on a wide body jet. And if you book their business class, you actually get then the international or the long haul, the long haul product, which means if you're in business class, then you get the lie flat seat with proper table service and premium drinks and food. And so I actually managed to find a one-way ticket on Delta, not for points, for cash, because the points was ridiculous. The points was 320,000 points for a 4.5-hour flight. No, not happening. But I managed to find a cash ticket from Seattle to Atlanta, and then connecting onward to Asheville, all on Delta. That was all on one ticket. And that got me their Delta One product. flying out of Seattle. So I haven't gotten to fly Delta One in a while, and I haven't gotten to fly Delta One transcontinental in a very long while. So I was able to see what that's like. The particular machine we were on was a little old, and it's definitely their older product. Unfortunately, for the people who had flown in, it was an A330. For the people who had flown in on it, they were coming from Charles de Gaulle, so they had flown 10 hours, and this is definitely not a product that is up to speed for a 10-hour flight, for the kind of money you would pay for that flight. So I kind of felt sorry for anyone who was on it for that long, but it was great for 4.5 hours. The food, however, was definitely subpar. Delta needs to up its, especially for a Delta One product, they offered a burger, a hamburger, or a salad. And both of them came in a box. They were not plated up on porcelain. They were not plated up on proper plates and cutlery. I mean, it was really a disappointing soft product experience, I will have to say. And they had a very limited, they only had black tea. They didn't have green tea even on this 4.5 hour flight. So that was kind of disappointing, especially for the price tag. And I will admit, I did pay cash for that. It was $1,000 one way, and that's because I managed to save all that money on all the other flights I take, so I can then splurge a little bit here and there when I need to. And I couldn't have borne the thought of 4.5 hours in even a recliner seat, because honestly, the first class product, domestic product in the United States, these recliner seats are not very comfortable. They are like the first class recliner seats these days are like economy class seats were in the 80s, basically. There's no footrest, they don't recline very far, and you have about the same amount of leg room that you had in economy class in the 80s. That's how far down the American hard product has sunk since then. And I will tell you that when I fly business class in Europe, the seats are pretty crappy. They're the standard, they're like real economy class seats, like now economy class seats. But the food and beverages are always absolutely premium. They're plated up on porcelain. You get top quality food, you get top quality drinks. The service is excellent. They come through the cabin multiple times, checking to see if you want anything. So compared to that, there wasn't very much checking in the cabin on this 4.5 hour Delta One flight, and the food and beverages was definitely not Delta One level, so that was pretty disappointing. Comment, do you use AirTags in your luggage? I think we're going to when we go to Honolulu at the end of February. I do not, but you should, and I do want to. Are you listening in there? Husband? Well, if he's watching, we want to get AirTags. So the incident that made me want to get AirTags, we need to get AirTags for our luggage. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw a comment.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm listening.
Oh, okay, I wasn't certain. Okay. I don't think I can actually go into the story of why I think it's very important that you get AirTags. And not just for your luggage. If you have specific items that are very, very precious to you and maybe irreplaceable, AirTag it. AirTag it, AirTag it, AirTag it. I've had several cases now of luggage getting left behind at the airport of origin and us traveling transoceanically to board a cruise, no less, and our luggage not getting delivered to us until the morning of embarkation, just before we were sailing away. And if we'd had AirTags, we could have pointed to them and told them, it's here, go get the bags and put them on the next bloody plane, right? So I do recommend AirTags, absolutely, and specifically, not necessarily just for your luggage, but especially if you're in a hotel, if you're staying in a hotel. We had a very precious stuffed animal from my childhood that it didn't get left behind. It wasn't even left behind. The fucking, excuse my language, the housekeeping threw my Lammy away. My Lammy of 43 years that I've had since I was a baby in a crib. They just got lazy and threw Lammy away. Lied about it. But if I'd had an AirTag on Lammy, then we could have found out exactly where he was and retrieved him from the trash dump before they incinerated him. By the time we found out the truth, the pile with Lammy at that trash dump had already been incinerated, but the housekeeping lied about it for about 4 weeks or more. 6 weeks. They lied about it for 6 weeks before we finally got the truth out of them, because we knew it had to be at that hotel where we'd been staying. Yeah. So after 6 weeks of searching every airport and every airline, and the only one that came up with that made sense was that hotel, they finally came back to us and said, yeah, housekeeping lied. They threw Lammy away and lied about it. If we'd air tagged Lammy, then I'd still have Lammy to this day. I can't believe I can tell that story without crying. Anyway, so yes, I recommend air tags, absolutely. And not just in your luggage, extra air tags specifically for items that you may be bringing with you, that you may be unpacking, especially in your carry-on. If you have items that you'd maybe take out of your carry-on for your flights, I always have sewing or something, right? So I have a pouch of sewing equipment. Like, I would air tag that, probably, thinking about it. So yeah, air tags are definitely something I can highly recommend, because here's the other thing that airlines like to do. I know from experience. You check in, let's say you check in first, they set your luggage off to the side, and if they set it next to a baggage cart that is waiting for other luggage to fill it, specifically other luggage from an incoming flight, and that incoming flight is late, they don't bother to load your bags on. They just make your bags wait for the delayed bags, so they don't put your bags on the plane at all. And then they lie about it for 3 days, talking about Condor Airlines. They lie about your bags being lost when they're actually just sitting where everyone knows they are. So on that particular cruise, if we'd air tagged our bags, we would have been able to tell them right from the get-go, here's where they are at SeaTac, waiting for someone to put them on a plane. Yeah, so all of that rambling is, yes, air tags, yes, 100%. Tag your bags, tag precious items that might be separate in addition to, just in case. Also, because depending on what's in your luggage is going to get searched. Your checked luggage is going to get searched. I get TSA love notes and love notes from security agencies all across the globe all the time, because I nearly always have medievalist equipment. So medieval reproduction items in my bag that look really funny on the scanners. And so they always open them up and they always inspect them. The point is that maybe they leave something out accidentally and it doesn't all make it back into the bag. Well, then you have, it's your precious item is air tagged and you know where it is, and you can tell them, look, it's back at your security area. Please get it to me. Yeah, air tags for certain. For those who might just be joining, if you have any questions, please pop them in the comments. And if you're enjoying this or benefiting from it, or just want to support my channel, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Really helps push my content in front of more people. I know I hate having to say that, but there it is. And once the video publishes, if you take the time to just leave even just an emoji under the posted video, question if you have it, but just an emoji, that also helps promote my content, etc., etc., or any of your favorite creators for that matter. Yeah. So Delta One, circling back to Delta One, past my very sad story. It was disappointing. It was only worth the money because of the length of the flight and the comfort of the seat. But I'm still disappointed in the soft product. Delta, you can do better. I know you can, because I've had better on your transcontinental Delta One product. Okay, next question. Do you document your repositioning flights for publication? When you say document, do you mean as in social media posts or in a blog, like an actual written blog? If the answer is yes, then I haven't, I kind of mentioned them, but I haven't really done it in any kind of concerted way. But I do actually have a website, thecreativecontessa.com, that does have a blog, and I could actually do that, and probably should do that, actually. Yeah, social media, for those who don't know, social media is a lot of work. Content creation, it is a full-time job, and I'm a one-man operation. I do all my own editing, all my own writing, all my own filming, except when my condottiero is with me, and then I make him do the filming. But then I still am the one who's putting together the final product and crafting it into a final thing and doing all the posting everywhere. So I should actually, though, Mike, I should really actually probably start including that in a blog. So keep your eyes peeled, ladies and gentlemen, for on thecreativecontessa.com. On my blog, I'll probably start publishing more regularly and more coherently, more details about things like repositioning flights and my itineraries and whatnot. And I'll actually try to start including that actually on my YouTube community page as well. I kind of fell away from the travel channel for a little while because I was focusing on the Creative Contessa, which is my medievalist creative stuff channel, because that one's actually monetized, whereas this one isn't. But I'm now getting back into the travel content and trying to push this channel more. So I think thank you for putting the idea in my head, Mike. I think I'm going to start publishing more on the community page for the YouTube channel and also on my blog on thecreativecontessa.com. Yeah, that's a good question, because those are the kind of things people do like to know. And it's funny, I know a lot of people like watching video content. I actually prefer to just read things. I don't have time to watch video content. So it's ironic that I'm more likely to make video content for other people than to actually write up my content and publish it that way. Yeah. So while we wait for the next question or comment, onward from Atlanta. Now, if you've ever been to Atlanta, I actually like Atlanta International Airport because it is arranged in an extremely logical, extremely easy to navigate fashion. It is a series, it's like FT plus A through F terminals. So it's like 9 terminals. But they're all laid out in parallel in a strip, and they're connected by one central corridor. You can either walk through all of them easily in the subterranean corridor, or you can take the train to all of them easily in the subterranean corridor. And they connect through the middle of each of the terminals. So you don't have to worry about coming in at one end of the terminal and having to walk all the way to the other end just to get to your connection point. So I actually like Atlanta from that perspective. The lounge situation is a little dire, unless you have access to Delta Sky Clubs, in which case Atlanta is your boy, because literally every terminal has at least 1, if not 2, Delta Sky Clubs. But there was supposed to be a Centurion Lounge coming to Atlanta. It hasn't yet opened. Supposedly it's under construction. There's one Priority Pass Lounge all the way in F, the international terminal. So if you're in Terminal A for your flight, you have quite a bit of distance to cover. And the Priority Pass Lounge also serves all of the non-SkyTeam airlines flying out of Atlanta. So it's nearly always super packed and really busy. So yeah, Atlanta's lounge situation is a little dire. Yes, hashtag Contessa World Problems. I get it. It's really a first world problem, but if you're watching my channel, then you're probably interested in that kind of content. That's also actually Atlanta. Funny you should say that. Atlanta, Mike, Atlanta's another airport I would recommend looking into. It's maybe a little far for a repositioning flight from either Austin or San Antonio. But there are quite a few Latin American and Central American, well, Latin America includes all of that, Latin American flights going out of Atlanta, out of the F terminal. Lots of them, actually. So, in fact, more flights, more of the international flights the last time I was there were going to Latin America than were heading to Europe or to Asia from Atlanta. So I would, if you're comfortable with a 2.5 hour or 3 hour connection for your repositioning flight, Atlanta would probably has some really good deals as well. But that might make me a little nervous for a repositioning flight, unless the fare was super excellent. Yeah. So the connection onward was just a short hop on Delta, going to Asheville. It's literally, you're up in the air, you reach cruising altitude, and then you immediately start descending. So it's a really short flight. And Asheville is a tiny airport that is expanding, but it's still a very, very small airport. And Asheville has currently no lounges whatsoever. But that's okay, because it was really just a connection to get me to Asheville, which is where my mother lives. So, that got me to Asheville, which is a beautiful place if you've ever been there, never been there. It actually has a really nice downtown that's coming back, filled with a lot of really delicious eateries. And you can also visit some of America's great robber baron history, because Biltmore, the neo-Renaissance chateau built by Cornelius Vanderbilt, is in Asheville, and it is a domineering piece of architecture. If you want to see how the great and the good lived 120 years ago, can highly recommend. It is stupidly expensive to get in though, so it might not be worth the money, but it is a glimpse into a world that has absolutely vanished. Not that we don't have robber barons anymore, we do. We have a whole new generation of robber barons, but they don't seem to build neo-Renaissance chateaus that require a staff of 40 people to operate, which this one did. So that is always an interesting visit if you can get it. It literally feels like they built everything for actual physical giants. Like everything is just oversized, the entire premises. It's like someone took Chambord or Chenonceau in from the Loire Valley and just blew them up and made them bigger. But it is pretty stunning and pretty interesting piece of property. Very neo-Gothic. Oh my God. It is so neo-Gothic. I mean, the shape of the outside is neo-Renaissance, but the inside is so heavily neo-Gothic. You could tell what they were going for. And there's some amazing late medieval and early Renaissance tapestries that Vanderbilt purchased. And he literally built the hall, one of the great halls in the castle, in his castle, to fit these giant heroes tapestry series. So it's even for people who are into medieval and Renaissance art, it's a place to go. But thank God for the robber barons. We wouldn't have all these wonderful museums in America with all this amazing Renaissance and medieval art without them. I can't say much for our new robber barons. They don't seem to have taste. Anyway, soapbox over. From there, I actually went from Asheville to New Orleans on Delta again, via Atlanta. And, the advantage of flying Delta for me is that I have, through my American Express Platinum and my Delta Reserve Platinum, I have Delta Sky Club access, no matter what my class of service is. So, and flying in out of Atlanta, that means I have lots of lounge options. And I will say that the Atlanta Delta clubs have really great staff. They've always been warm and friendly, and they work really hard to keep those places clean, despite all of the efforts of us travelers to trash them and make them very dirty indeed. So I do always enjoy flying into and out of Atlanta just for the Sky Club experiences. And the food tends to be really pretty decent too. Yeah. So I flew on to New Orleans, and again, the benefit of the Delta Sky Club is that they do let you use that as an arrivals lounge. So when I landed in New Orleans, I was able to go and grab some snacks and get a nice fresh cup of tea to take with me. They have to-go cups, which is great. And again, really high quality tea. And yeah, New Orleans, actually, they just built a new airport in New Orleans, and it is great. It is really beautiful. It is big and airy and has beautiful sculpting, nice architectural features, which is definitely a big improvement over the old New Orleans airport, which was pretty dim and dank and unappealing visually, the way most airports were that were built before this century. They were built for practicality, not, basically kind of like bus terminals, rather than for a beautiful space in which to recreate, as it were. Yeah. So the new New Orleans airport, very nice. Very nice indeed. I didn't get to fly out of it, though. I only flew into it, because then I drove from there to Hattiesburg, and then from there to Mobile, and then from there to Selma, all by car. And because, of course, doing all of this on public transit would be basically impossible. Although there are trains, but yeah, the connectivity would be pretty tricky in many cases. And then from there back to Atlanta. And then once again, on the back end of my trip, I had a repositioning flight from Atlanta, because I was visiting friends in Columbus, which is 90 miles from Atlanta. So yeah, there is an airport in Columbus, but it was significantly cheaper to just pay for a little bit extra for gas and have them drive me up to Atlanta, and then take a flight on United all the way up to Dulles. Now, here's another important tip, everyone. So I was flying back to visit my husband in Seoul, or in Korea, on Turkish Airlines using an award fare. But I had specifically booked my repositioning flight to get me to Dulles from Atlanta on United, because United is a Star Alliance carrier. Turkish Airlines is a Star Alliance carrier. And I knew, I did this back in May, I knew I could get the United gate agent to check my bags all the way through to Seoul, which meant that even though it was a repositioning flight, I didn't have to exit security, I didn't have to collect my bags in Dulles and wait for check-in to open at Turkish Airlines, because I scheduled on purpose a very long layover because I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time for any issues that may have arisen. So the United agent, and I have to say, the United gate agents, the one in May and the one in January, they were both really excellent. They worked their magic to make sure that my bags were checked all the way through. It took them a good 15 minutes to get the routing right because they had to enter everything in manually. So they took my flight number, they took my class of service, my fare, so that make sure that I have the right baggage allowance, right? But they did it. And my bags were checked all the way through, and they actually made it to Seoul. Now, granted, I wouldn't have been sad if there'd been a delay because I actually have some clothes here, so it would have been okay if they'd had to deliver my bags to me in Daegu instead of me having to collect them and put them on the bus and, get them home myself. But they made it. They did. They made it, and they were some of the first bags off of the conveyor belt in Seoul. So, that was pretty good. Tip, if you buy two separate tickets, but they are in the same alliance, it is likely you can actually get the agent to check it all the way through to your final destination. So always ask. It never hurts to ask. The other nice thing is that I actually had an economy class ticket getting me up to Dulles, and one of my bags was actually, despite redistributing things, one of my bags was slightly overweight by like 4 pounds. That should have cost me an extra $100. But the United gate agent was just, because they were booking me through all the way on a business class flight, they didn't even care about it. Didn't harass me at all. It wouldn't have been a problem because I actually have a credit from American Express, an airline credit that would have covered the cost of the excess baggage. But it was nice not to have to just even play that game. So gotta love United. Whereas I've had American Airlines slam me for $400 for being 1 pound overweight. I got that money back later, but still, it was annoying at the time. So, checked in for my United flight. Not only did it run on time, we landed early, and I actually had the chance then to check out the new Capital One lounge in Dulles. Now, Capital One has lounges. They're building lounges. They're expanding their network. I think it's definitely very much like the American Express Centurion lounge. It was beautiful. This lounge was great, and they've really thought of a lot of details and amenities. And you can get access to the Capital One lounges if you have the Venture X card or the Venture Rewards card. The Venture Rewards card only gets you 2 free visits a year. The Venture X card gets you unlimited free visits plus free guests. I have both cards. But this is the first chance I'd had to actually try a Capital One lounge, and the food was excellent. It was plated up on these beautiful bites, beautiful little plates. And so it was all locally sourced, made by inspired by local chefs and local restaurants in the DC area. And DC has a great culinary scene, if you don't know that. And they had a full bar with really excellent cocktails, also taken directly from some of the more famous bars and restaurants in DC, and one of them was the Bee's Knees. And I don't drink usually, ever, with good reason, but sometimes I will indulge. And what made me indulge this time was the bar had this beautiful bumblebee-shaped thing, where it was this gilt golden bumblebee in metal, and then this beautiful little frosted glass, where the bee's throat would have been. No, not his throat, where his butt would have been, actually, and this gilt lid. And so the Bee's Knees was this cocktail, and I don't remember what was in it, but whatever it was, it turned it orangish, like nectar, like honey nectar. And they mixed it, and then they poured it into the bee's butt. And then they put a little marigold in it and served it to me. And I couldn't turn that down. Things being served in beautiful vessels deserve to be consumed. And it was actually very, very tasty. Unfortunately, I'm a lightweight, so I only consumed a third of it because despite the fact that, there wasn't that much. A third was enough to make my world start feeling a little fuzzy around the edges. But I did eat the marigold. People don't know marigold blossoms are edible and very tasty and very nutritious. So yeah, the bee's knees, that was pretty fun. I think I did actually, I'm going to be doing a short, I think, I did a short on Capital One. I either did a short on the Capital One Lounge or I'm going to be putting one together. I have to check. That will include the bee's knees because that was a pretty fun aspect of the Capital One Lounge. But the other nice thing about the Capital One Lounge is that you don't even have to go into the main part of the lounge. They have a grab and go section with really super high quality sandwiches and yogurts and granola and fresh fruit and beverages. They had falafel. They had like this really delicious chicken sandwich, and they actually have paper bags, and they literally encourage you to take as much as you want and take it with you. So if you're going on a flight that doesn't have food, that doesn't offer catering, and you have access to the Capital One Lounge, take advantage of it. They also have a full coffee and tea bar, again, where you can get drinks to go, as many as you want, and it's on the other side of security, so you don't have to worry about having your beverages confiscated, right? So Capital One Lounge, definitely doing the right thing. It was contemporary decor, but it was colorful and interesting, visually interesting, and they had some interesting, not terribly annoying music piping in that eventually changed to more of vintage jazz, which I actually like. And the staff were working really hard to keep it clean and neat. And I was actually addressed by name by the check-in staff. And when I left, they actually addressed me by name and wished me a good flight. And I'm not certain if they managed to remember everyone's names or if I'm just visually interesting enough to remember. I don't know. But if they did remember everyone's names as they left, wow. So Capital One Lounge, absolutely worth a visit. At Dulles International Airport, they are right after TSA pre-check, kind of in a hidden corner, but if you follow the signs, they will guide you there. Yeah. Oh, let me see if there are any more questions. So then I had a long layover, so I had a 7 or 8 hour layover. And so the Capital One Lounge, I said you can get it with these 2 credit cards. And by the way, I'm not sponsored by any credit cards. My travels channel is not sponsored by anyone. I don't even have any patrons currently supporting it. So any of my recommendations are 100% genuine, not influenced by any monetary input whatsoever. So Capital One, if you're listening, I will accept money, but I will still continue to review you honestly. Sorry. Anyway. I had enough time that I was able to enjoy the Capital One Lounge, then collect my things and proceed onward. In fact, I have a live stream from the Capital One Lounge. If you go back and look at live streams, you can check that out. And proceed onward to the Turkish Airlines Lounge. Now, Turkish Airlines actually has a dedicated lounge at Dulles because they actually have 2 flights a day into and out of Dulles. And I think I've heard talk of them expanding to 3 because there's just that much traffic between Istanbul and Washington, D.C. And so they have their own dedicated lounge. Now, it is not a big lounge relative to the number of people who use it because it also functions as a priority pass lounge and it also functions as a Star Alliance lounge. So it's pretty crowded at any given time now that we're back in the full swing of things. That being said, I would say that at Dulles, the Turkish Airlines Lounge has the best food. It is really delicious traditional Turkish food. They've got lamb kofta, they've got really splendid hummus, and they've got baba ganoush, which is called something else in Turkish. I apologize, I can't remember what it's called. Smoked eggplant with yummy tahini and lemon juice and garlic all mixed together into this beautiful yummy dip kind of thing, right? They've got really super tasty falafel and lentil soup and really good crudite and of course, Turkish chai, the really good quality stuff. And you can get Turkish coffee freshly made from the bar. And of course, I don't know about you, dear viewers, but I love Turkish coffee. I don't like most regular coffee, at least in America. I won't drink, it's crap. But Turkish coffee with that hint of cardamom, so good. And you can get that at the Turkish Airlines Lounge in Dulles. So you can access it if you're flying Turkish Airlines business class or you have Turkish Airlines status. You can fly it. You can go to the Turkish Airlines Lounge with priority pass. And I do believe if you're flying on a Star Alliance carrier in business or first class, then you also get access to the international. Then you get access to the Turkish Airlines lounge at Dulles. And it is worth saving room in your stomach for the Turkish Airlines lounge food. It is that good. Yeah, and they have really good fresh salads. I'm confident they have alcohol at the bar. I just never take advantage of it. They probably have rake, which is the Turkish version of ouzo. So if you like licorice flavored alcohol, which I do have a soft spot for it, you can no doubt get it at the Turkish Airlines lounge. In fact, you can get it on Turkish Airlines during the flight. You can have rake, and I keep forgetting that because it makes it really good digestive, and I do like it, and it's one of those things on which I will splurge. So that set me up to board for my Turkish Airlines flight, and I was flying business class. I booked it back in August, so August for a January flight, and they were running a promotion, a reward promotion. So I was able to get what is normally 180,000 mile ticket, 180,000 point ticket. I got it for 66,000, and you can't. There's no other airline I know where you can fly, Seoul to Washington, D.C., or Seoul to America, or America to Korea for that few points. Not even maybe Japan Airlines, ANA, All Nippon Airways, but good luck finding award availability on them if you want to plan in advance. You have to book close in with them if you want to try to get a seat, because everyone's trying to book with ANA. But I managed to get my Turkish Airlines business class fare for 66,000 points. Now, that being said, the taxes and fees were pretty steep. It was $500 in taxes and fees. So Turkish Airlines does actually pass on a cheeky amount of taxes and fees to when you book a reward fare. So just kind of be tracking that, I guess. And then, I boarded my flight. Turkish Airlines is still, hands down, one of the best airlines in the world. I've done a lot of, last 2.5 years, I've done a lot of premium cabin flying all over the world with a variety of carriers, American flag carriers, Asian flag carriers, European flag carriers, Middle Eastern flag carriers. And I have to say that still, even now, Turkish Airlines, one of the best airlines. And again, they're not sponsoring me. I get no kickbacks whatsoever for saying this. This is a genuine, honest review. The service was friendly and attentive. The food was okay. Most of the food was good on this flight. I will say that one of the things was one thing was disappointing on both legs, both my Istanbul leg and my Seoul leg. On the main courses, they did not have any traditional Turkish food. None that was obviously traditionally Turkish anyway. I ordered what was called the barbecue beef, and it was like strips as the main course, and it was strips of beef in this marinade, and it was gloppy. Like they'd used too much cornstarch or some kind of thickener in the sauce for the barbecue, and it really was not. I ate it, but it was not up to Turkish Airways standards, I have to say. And I would have expected some kind of Turkish moussaka or, lamb, something with lamb. Again, something with lamb, please. Not beef, but lamb for the kind of prices they charge. And there was none of that. But nevertheless, the service was excellent. The table settings, they actually put a little LED candle out in this cute little star-shaped paper envelope that really just adds a nice extra touch of elegance to your experience. And the meze, they didn't even have meze. They didn't have Turkish meze on the DC to Istanbul leg, which is disappointing because it's like one of my favorite things about Turkish cuisine are the meze, the beautiful, delicious side dishes, all the different vegetable preparations and the dips and whatnot. And they didn't have that on the leg from DC. But what they did have was tasty. I remember thinking that. I just don't remember what it was offhand, but it was good. But nevertheless, Turkish Airlines still one of the top airlines. And I was flying one of their very old products, actually, just like on Air India, except that unlike Air India, Turkish Airlines has actually bothered to maintain their old products. So this was an A330, a 777, Boeing 777, but it was a very old configuration. It was a 232 configuration. Which in business class, which means 2 seats next to each other, 3 seats in the center, and then 2 seats next to each other. And so the only people who had aisle access were people literally on the aisle. And that meant you were either climbing over someone or getting climbed over. It was going to happen. So it was but the thing I like about that style is that it's open. The seats are actually wider than the new pod seats. And there's no footwell. You have an ottoman, the seat connects with the ottoman, and so you actually have the whole width of the seat all the way down for your legs. So there's no cramping footwell, which is the way pretty much all of the new business class products are going these days, where you have a very narrow footwell. So it feels like you're in a pod, and if you're like me and you're a side sleeper, it doesn't work out very well when you try to turn on your side and your feet are jammed. I know, hashtag Contessa World problems, but there it is. It's why I like the actually older, the older business class products in many cases, because you actually have wider seats with more legroom. And that is the case on the Boeing 777 that Turkish Airlines is still flying in a lot of its long haul routes. So yeah, if you're flying long haul and you prefer more room for your legs, more room for your butt, more room for your body, then I would actually recommend booking on Turkish Airlines 777 rather than their new Dreamliner product on the Boeing 787. Curiously, and the seat was very comfortable. They make your bed for you. You actually get a mattress pad and a nice thick comforter duvet bedspread thing. So that's really great. The mattress pad only does a little bit. It kind of, it sort of unifies the seat, the joints in the seat a little bit. It's not like super thick, but it's a nice gesture, right? It makes you feel like you're in a bed instead of just in a seat that's reclined flat. And so that is a nice touch. Yeah. Okay. Are there any questions about any of that? Basically, I definitely recommend Turkish Airlines. If you ever have a chance to fly Turkish Airlines, take it. You can use them basically from the US, you can use them to get to anywhere in Africa, Asia, or Europe, really, because they've run a massive hub. That's Turkish Airlines has positioned itself to be a connector to the world. Now, granted, going from the US to South America, you can try to run that route, but that's going to be a really long flight because you're going to go all the way to Istanbul and then connect all the way back to the southern part of the hemisphere. So, but yeah, Turkish Airlines, if you can find a way to take them using the repositioning flights at the beginning or the back end to get to like a specific location, then I really recommend it. They'll definitely probably be less expensive than an American flag carrier going to the same destination, and the quality of experience will just be immensely higher, even in economy class. The seats are bigger in economy class. You have more legroom in an economy class than on the American flag carriers for certain. Okay, well, I've been holding forth for an hour and 40 minutes. So if you have any questions, I'm going to give a few moments or a few minutes. I'm just going to say last questions now or last comments you would like in the live chat. If you're watching this in retrospect, again, please, if you have questions, put them in the comments below. Hit the thumbs up if you've been enjoying the stream, if you've benefited from it. Otherwise, yeah, I'll just close off with if you want to enhance your travel experience and you are in countries where reward credit cards are offered, I can highly recommend going that route. I started playing this game 5 years ago and it has so enhanced my quality of life. The thing about it is though, only get credit cards if you can treat them like a debit card. To wit, you pay off the balance every month. The entire statement balance every month. Do not acquire debt. Do not pay interest. If you have to use a credit card like a loan, don't do it. Get a proper loan from an actual bank that doesn't charge you 33% APY per year, right? Interest per year. But I use my credit cards for all of my spending so that every single purchase generates points. I bank those points, and then I use them to buy long haul business and first class flights. Whereby I use the points, and then I might have to pay a little bit of cash, but much less than even an economy class ticket would be. And then my travel experience is really excellent. So look into for people who are getting into the game, the point game, and you don't want a big annual fee, you just want to benefit from the points. City Premier $95 annual fee. It is absolutely worth it because the points you will earn every year just on all your everyday spending will more than compensate for that $95 annual fee. The Capital Venture Rewards card, Capital One Venture Rewards card, $95 annual fee, but also comes with those 2 complimentary Capital One visits, and that's 2 times on all your spending. The amount of points you'll get from the welcome bonus and then from your everyday spending absolutely compensate for that $95 fee. So those would be my recommendations for starter cards if you're getting into the game. And then there's like a whole other world out there, and I'm not going to get into that. Okay, well then everyone, I hope you have benefited from this live stream, and I thank you for tuning in if you have, or if you're watching in retrospect. Again, once last time, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. And I hopefully will be publishing my Air India first class vlog soon from back in May, and try to get to the rest of, because I've taken a lot of flights that I've vlogged, and I just have to put the vlog together for each of them. Unfortunately, each vlog takes like 50 hours worth of work to edit and come up with a script and all that. So yeah, hopefully I'll get to that in the next month or 2 or 3. Okay, everyone. Well, then, until next time, may your travels be creative and safe. And I wish you all a happy Saturday or Sunday, depending on where you are. Bye, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.